This is the Matt Report, the voice of WordPress entrepreneurship. If you're running a WordPress freelance business selling themes, plugins, or client services, this is the place for you. Learn more at mattreport.com and subscribe at mattreport.com/subscribe. And now, on to the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Matt Report. I am your host, Matt. Of course, who else would be sitting in the seat besides Lisa, who has the day off today, by the way, shockingly enough. If this is your first time listening to the show, this is the Matt Report, the #1 WordPress business podcast on the web. If you like us, if this is the first time you've been here, if you've been listening for almost 100 episodes now, head on over to iTunes, leave us a 5-star review. You don't even have to leave a review anymore, people. You just hover over the 5th star on the list, click it. That'll give us 5 stars, which helps in getting found and beating out all of these other top tier podcasts. I'd really enjoy that. If you did, leave a comment if you want. I'd be happy to read it on the show and give you some love. We're also on Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, Ford cars, BMW cars, whoever has streaming audio. That's where you're going to find the Matt Report. The best way to stay connected, mattreport.com/subscribe, join the mailing list, and you'll know when all of the awesome interviews go out, like my guest, Clint, today. This show is brought to you by Conductor Plugin. Yes, it's my plugin. That's the only person who gets to sponsor this show. Conductor Plugin is the developer's tool for building layouts and content displays for WordPress. It makes it so damn easy. It makes it easy for you, makes it easy for your client. You hop into the live editor. Everything's done in the live customizer, I should say, and you build these content layouts. You hit publish, and you're done in minutes. Versus hours. Chris Ford, a highly regarded WordPress designer, said she was messing around with the Genesis loop for about 5 hours, and then she threw in Conductor and got it done in 5 minutes. That was pretty awesome. It was an awesome testimonial, and she built an amazing site with it. Find out more at conductorplugin.com. All right, if you're a pro member, mattreport.com/join. You might already know Clint from one of his procasts that he did with us a few months ago. Clint Warren is the founder of stacked agency Illuminate WP and the newly launched 6-figure freelancer. Clint, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Appreciate it.
You're like me. Except better looking and stronger. But you're like me. You do a lot of stuff. And I think the best place to direct people is clintwarren.com, where they can find out more about all the different businesses that you're running, the different services that you offer. And I think at the end of the show, we'll have a landing page that folks can go to find out a little bit more, a little special surprise for them at the end of the show. But give folks the 2-minute elevator pitch, who you are and what you do.
Man, it's like harder and harder to answer that question. Who I am and what I do. So I run Stacked Agency. We're an online marketing agency that I started with Brian Castle. He actually has since sort of moved on to focus on his business, Restaurant Engine. We help small to mid-sized businesses establish a beautiful online presence and create marketing strategies to drive people to their site. Illuminate WP was founded out of my passion for teaching. We host in-person workshops that teach people how to build and manage basic WordPress websites and search engine optimization strategies. And more recently, I've moved a lot into writing, teaching, and speaking. The 6-figure freelancer course is really a guide for people based off my experience as to how to very quickly build a freelance web design business. So everything that I learned and all the tools and skills that they can apply to their own. So we have our first in-person workshop coming up on November 15th, but at some point I'll probably be releasing the material online. Yep,
nice. That's good stuff. The interesting topic for today is, one, I want to learn a little bit how you get into freelancing and how WordPress has really given you the opportunity to create all these amazing things that you do. So take us down that path, and then we're going to start talking about the hustle and sort of getting off your ass, for lack of a better phrase, to get out there and actually build a business, because so few of us, or very few of us are afraid to just make that leap to get out but from behind our computers and actually meet people. But
Yeah.
get into WordPress, and how has that changed your life?
So I always say I sort of had an accidental career in web design. I was arrested in 2011 for trafficking marijuana, and it was one of the most, I struggled most of my adult life with a lot of drug and alcohol problems that regrettably led me to make some very poor decisions. And in many ways, that event was kind of like getting rescued, because I was really spiraling out of control. Nothing was, other than sort of that intervention, was going to really make me focus on my life and figure out what to do. And I remember sitting in jail and really just looking at the direction my life was headed, and I realized, how it was going to end if I didn't change direction. And I made a commitment at that moment to really dig down deep and do everything I could to just never put myself in a situation again where I'd let people down, my family, my friends. At that point I had lost many friends. And I just said, you know what, from this point forward, I am going to do everything I can to just move in the right direction. And I got bailed out of jail, but I actually was facing up to 7 years in prison, and the courts move really slowly. So I needed to, first of all, I went to rehab. I got my head on straight and removed one of the biggest limiting factors in my life. But the next thing was like, what do I do for a living? I have no corporate job to go to. I was studying for a personal training certification. I got that. But what I did know a little bit about was web design. And I'd taken a couple courses in college. And I really just started to hustle. I said my only option is to build a freelance business, help people with their websites. So I hustled, I talked to friends, family, and at one point someone asked me to build a blog, and I did some research and I found this platform, WordPress. And I remember that moment where I said, holy crap, like this is going to dramatically change how websites are built, maintained, and operated. And there's not a day that passes that I don't really I'm so grateful that exactly at the time where demand for WordPress skills exploded, I dove in head first. And I looked at every project as an opportunity to sort of build a name and a reputation for myself that I never really had. And I finally felt like I was a person of value. I was helping people. So I worked really hard. I built up my business very quickly. I started speaking a lot. We can go into some of the tools and strategies to build a business, but I also got very involved in meetup groups and things like that. And actually, in the end of 2012, after building the business, I then had to serve some time in prison. But I used that time to then write all the material for my WordPress training business. And when I got out, it was like hit the ground running. So in many ways, WordPress, not only gave me a career, but it introduced me. I know of no other community of people that is so giving and nurturing and really helps one another through meetup groups and conferences and things like that. I mean, you have to understand, I didn't have a lot of positive forces or people in my life for most of my life, so this was in so many ways an opportunity that was far beyond anything I could have ever imagined only a few years ago.
Yeah, it's an amazing journey that you went through, and I'm very happy that it's been a positive for you. In full disclosure, we are in the same mastermind group. We meet up every couple of weeks, and we talk about these struggles with one another and the other folks in our group. So I do applaud you and salute you on all the success that you've had.
Thank you.
Coming out of that. One of the things that when I went to WordCamp New York and we met up, and I've never even told you this before, but here I am running a podcast, talking to all these WordPress people, right? I'm walking down the hall with you, and everybody's like high-fiving you. Hey, there's Clint. Hey, Clint. Hey, Clint. Clint. Hey, Clint, can I have lunch with you? And I'm like, but and it's like, and every time and then you give me like the little side note, like you're like, oh, I know that person from this speaking gig, or this meetup, or from this online webinar. Talk to us a little bit about that, about building that presence sort of offline in front of people, and how that sort of helped your business.
Yeah, totally. So let's backtrack to I'm starting my freelance business. I go around to friends, family. You get a couple referrals, but that taps out pretty quickly. You can only badger people so much for referrals and really just apply that brute force hustle, which, hey, I put everything I had into that. I worked really hard to get those first few. One of the critical turning points in my career was early 2012 when I volunteered. I'm assuming a lot of people know meetup.com, but if you don't, there's a lot of WordPress groups pretty much everywhere. I volunteered to speak at my local WordPress group on custom post types. And I knew nothing about the topic, but they were like, we need a speaker. Does anyone want to talk? And I was like, yeah, sure. And you wouldn't realize it now, but back then I had no public speaking experience. I'm not a natural public speaker. I was terrified. So I stood in my kitchen, I researched for about a month, I rehearsed over and over and over, and I gave this talk, and it's like black and white slides, just lines of code. People were probably falling asleep. But right afterwards, a woman approached me and was like, wow, I need to hire a developer to work on site 1 day a week. You're a WordPress expert. And I wasn't going to correct her, I guess I realized pretty quickly that, just by getting up there and speaking and sharing what you've learned, you already appear as an expert. So what happened is I got invited to that same talk in the Hudson Valley, New York meetup group, and then I realized that I really love to speak, so I started constantly reaching out and doing more and more talks and just sharing what I'd learned. It's been hands down one of the biggest drivers in my business.
Nice. And that's sort of the fear factor that people have, to do that, right? Because they are afraid to, let's take into consideration the developer, right? This person, all they do is develop lines of codes and plugins, and maybe they get their hands dirty with some theme development stuff. But I mean, what's the one thing that they should just know to kick them in the pants a little bit, to say, get out of your seat and do this, because this is
yeah. All right, so there's a couple points to that. Number one is that be in the mindset that no matter what you want to do in life, you can practice and get better at it. Like, I was terrified of public speaking. Most people are. But I just said, I'm going to give this a shot. The other is that by teaching something, you will force yourself to learn it and master it more effectively. It really forced me to build a prototype to show custom post types for that first talk, and really dive in and master the material more than if I was just sort of learning at my own pace. And the other thing too is you just do it. A lot of people get so hung up on perfecting things, but there's so much to be said for just giving it a shot. And it means so much. What I didn't realize is how much it meant to the people who were there, who would come and share their time with me to learn about a new topic. They really appreciated it. I thought afterwards, I was like, oh man, I could have done so much better, and I probably could, but for a lot of people, they got a lot out of that, and they thanked me. And I realized at that moment that was more fulfilling to me than picking up a new client project or anything like that.
Yeah. I think we talked about this in our mastermind the other day, but there are so many people that are just 2-3 years, 2-3 weeks behind you on knowledge, that we sort of get paralyzed from thinking like, well, I can't teach this. Everybody knows this already, right? Like, why am I going to talk about custom post types? Everybody knows about custom post types by now.
Yeah.
And just the fact that you know what custom post types are, there's like a whole swath of people out there that don't know what custom post types are. Never mind how to use them.
Totally.
They don't even know where the benefit is. So
yep.
That's another thing that folks, if you're thinking about, gee, do I volunteer to talk about this? Do I hit up meetup.com and ask the WordPress meetups to talk about this? Yeah. Don't be afraid to throw that out there.
Right. And I will mention too, on that same vein or note, the other big turning point too is like writing. In any medium, if you can put yourself out there and just share what you've learned, it's very powerful. So I started. I saw this intro to WordPress SEO talk by my buddy Alex Miranda, and I started blogging, and I started putting together these sort of long blog posts, and just, are they the end-all, be-all, like best resource? No, but it was an effort by me to just share a lot of stuff, and it ended up being a huge driver again for my business. I had one post that was like how to create a e-commerce site using WooCommerce that still drives a ton of leads to my site.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think a couple months ago, I think you were booked like 50 days out of the month because it's not even humanly possible. Give us that rundown because when you told me in the mastermind, I was like, how the heck do you sleep? When and where do you sleep besides in your car on the highway?
So I had I had 21 speaking engagements, and there was actually one that was pretty badass, where I was teaching one night I was teaching a 3-hour-long intro to WordPress course. Then halfway through I was like, guys, hold on one sec. I got to go downstairs and do a 10-minute TED talk. If you want to come down and see my life story in 10 minutes with auto advancing slides, join me. I'll be right back. And I ran to the other side of the building. I did that talk and came back up and was like, all right, now we're going to open up our dashboard and here's how we're going to add video. But awesome. What it was is what I found with speaking is, number one, I love it. It's not so much anymore to generate business as it is to do something that I love and connect with people in the audience. And I have a whole system now. The one thing I learned is if you get up there and go to a group, if you really rock out the presentation, you're always going to be invited back because they love having good presenters and people who really share their energy and enthusiasm and talk about a good topic. So that's what I always tell people is like, don't just show up and half-ass it or rehearse. I'm usually rehearsing weeks or months in advance on a certain talk and topic. The other thing too is really I systematized my outreach. So many months in advance, I'm reaching out to, I'll give a good example, libraries. It took me more salesmanship to get into the local library speaking circuit than it did selling $50,000 websites. Real persistence. And what I do is after I do a talk, I will ask for a testimonial from the host because now I can use that to get in the door of other places. So, another example is I tend to do pretty well with 40 to 60-year-old female entrepreneurs, so I speak at all the female entrepreneur networking groups and just sort of find good topics to speak about. And to that note too, a big thing is just constantly doing research and gathering feedback. I always tell people when I present, I'm like, guys, tell me you hate my tie and I won't wear it again. I'm not going to take anything personally. It's all an opportunity to get better and just really just blow people away with your passion and enthusiasm. So.
Yeah. I always thought that the library stuff was like a no-brainer. Like I was like, wow, that's a perfect combination because I would just one, I don't know if there's enough libraries around me that would actually want that topic, but it was just, I was like, wow, that's smart. That's really great. But now I'm hearing that it took so much salesmanship. Is it because they're so far behind the curve? I would think they'd be dying.
I asked myself the same thing. I think it's just there's a lot of people involved and they move very slowly. The response, I would reach out and in some cases get introductions to the reference person. They're like, well, we have a lot of people involved in the process. We're going to be, in a couple weeks we'll be sitting down to think about our planning for next quarter, this and that. But I did 2 circuits or 3 circuits at 3 local libraries, and once you're in and you bring the heat, you're always going to be welcome back. Yeah. And I found it was a pretty good audience.
Are there any other local groups or organizations that you're a part of outside of WordPress that are beneficial to your business?
Yeah, so one group that's been really good for me is BNI, which is Business Network International. We meet once a week. BNI is everywhere. There's chapters all over. We meet once a week at 7 in the morning, and you basically ask for introductions and referrals. And I don't want to call it a secret to my business, but I didn't know that I had sort of systematized this very early on. I realized I could build up a lot of goodwill just by introducing people to one another. So I'd go to all these events and I wouldn't necessarily have business for this person, but I would meet a lot of graphic designers and someone would come to me for a logo and I'd say, you know what, let me introduce you to this person that I know. So when I joined this BNI group, it's all based around asking for referrals, and it's been tremendous. So for example, when I wanted to get into this one female networking group and speak, that I had been trying to for a year and a half, I asked, does anyone know Chris Olenek, who runs the local chapter? And this one realtor in my business networking group said, oh yeah, I'm best friends with her. And we arranged an introduction, and bam, now I was in front of the group. So it's that saying of like who you know, BNI has been a great way to like deliberately ask for introductions and get them.
Yeah, the one of the things that comes up a lot with freelancers, right? Especially when they're trying to find the right budget client. And I have this thing now where, like, maybe 6 months ago, everyone was talking about, maybe 6 months to a year, and people still talk about it, and it's not a bad thing, but value-based pricing, right?
Yep.
We only want to do value-based pricing. I think a lot of people mix that up with, well, I just have to charge more money. That's what value-based is, right? I'm going to charge this person.
Just pick a number and not explain it.
Right, pick a number, not explain it, and say, well, that's the value that that's the value I've determined, and that's the price of this project. I think that it's easy to get that phrase conflicted with that. Right. And I think that if you're picking a profitable project, as long as you have healthy profits, a $500 project could be super healthy for you. You might get it done in half a day, and you've made $400 based on half an hour. And
yep.
I think that's super important that folks don't forget that. Where I was going with that question was the need to sort of sell yourself and get to that next level. Is going to just take some hustle and some getting out there. And when people are looking for that price, they say, well, I don't want to do business with you because you only have $1,500, and then they send that person away. But if you set up a referral network like you do, and I know somebody that can handle this, I know this graphic designer, it's actually like a long tail business strategy where you're referring people, and they're like, wow, that was great. Maybe I'll go back to Clint for something else instead of just getting that hard wall, like you're not worth it to me.
Yeah, totally. Now, I will say to that too, one thing that if someone is not qualified based on personality, like if during the qualification call I realize this person's kind of a jerk, under no circumstances will I ever pass that referral wrong. And working with enough people and having some good intuition, I'm pretty good at detecting that. However, if it's just like a price thing, I have a guy who, he was like, you got to come up here so I can buy you dinner. Like, you're buying my new apartment and car because you're sending me. He's a freelancer. He's amazing at what he does. He charges like very little. I keep telling him he's got to jack his rates up because he's so good at it. But it's building goodwill, and that's how I was introduced to the business. When I was starting out, I introduced myself to guys who were 5 steps ahead of the game, and I said, if you have anything like scraps you want to throw me, I will pass up larger projects up to you, because one thing that is important for freelancers to recognize is that there will be projects that come your way that you have to understand that balance between. There's always going to be a project that will push you and take you to the next level, but then there's also the ones you don't want to take that will get underwater and in over your head, and it's sort of a fine line. So I had several projects initially that were very tempting because I needed to eat and get paid, but I said, I'm going to pass this up to one of the more seasoned professionals in my area, and I knew that over time having that goodwill would come back to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's awesome advice. It's an awesome lesson. Let's talk about the freelancers in the audience, folks who are looking to build that business. What kind of tips, what kind of advice are you going to give them aside from getting out of their seat? Is there anything else on mindset or setting up a system that they can use to sort of improve their business?
Yeah. Like I said, one of the first things is like, okay, so the first thing is like building technical mastery. I always say this because I don't want to emphasize getting really good at selling and marketing before you're the best at what you do. Otherwise, you just accelerate the rate at which people realize you're an idiot. So what I did is I really approached like a lot of mentors and showed appreciation. And the way that to show appreciation that I found in terms of mentors is, like, I would invite all these people out for lunch and coffee, and for that, sometimes them sitting with me for an hour cost them like $1,000, because they were giving up a lot of opportunities. So what I did is I would take notes, and any book or resource they mentioned, I would devour it and apply it to my business and report back and say, I took everything you said, I applied it, here's what happened, I'm ready for my next lesson. So, and that never ends. That's why I'm in mastermind groups, and I constantly reach out to people I know are better than me. I always want to feel like I'm the stupidest guy in the room, because that's going to push me to grow. So never get complacent. Build up that massive social network of, and look, me, like, I'm not a big social media guy. I do it in person because that's sort of where I flourish. So, but it could be different for other people. If they can build that rapport and that network of people to pass business to and make introductions. So, like, I have a habit every day of writing an introductory email between two people who might benefit each other. Does that directly make me money every day? No, but it builds, when I then need to tap for some favors here and there from people, I got a lot of people that, I can turn to. So develop that skills. The other thing too is, like, you get to a point where you're good enough at what you do. Focus then and study with that same intensity that you would be studying code on sales and marketing. Because at the end of the day, you could. I know plenty of developers that are where they were 3 years ago because they didn't know how to sell and market themselves. And for me, selling myself is first. That first sale has to be internal, of recognizing, like, I am the best possible option. I'm going to work harder than anyone else out there to get this job done. I'm going to deliver on my word and be the best experience this client has had. Once I believe that, and that I know that what I'm offering is the client can afford it and that it will benefit them, you sell the SH, I don't know if there's kids listening, out of it. Because Ramit Sethi has a great line. If you don't have a product worth selling aggressively, you don't have a product worth selling. Yep. I really believe that. When you have to believe in yourself and know that if what's going to benefit the client, there's nothing wrong with getting in front of them, and really just not being pushy about it, but helping them make a good decision for their business.
Right. Yeah. I think that sometimes if you're living in the bubble of Twitter, and then the bubble within the bubble, which is WordPress, we sort of get caught up in the thought that, well, everybody else is seeing grand success because all they do is WordPress, right? So people will be knocking down the door or buying my WordPress theme because I see that people make millions of dollars worth of revenue off of themes. Not the case, and you will have to take some action, a lot of action.
Yeah.
And if you have a good product, you have to go knock on doors. I mean, we built Conductor a year ago. It started a year ago. We recently launched it, and I am literally still knocking on doors. Like, I've got this thing.
Yeah.
Can you use it? Do you want to buy it? Can we partner?
Right.
If you're in the audience, you're listening. Like, if you're an indie developer, like you're indie theme developer, and you're building sort of 2-3 themes, and you're like pretty happy with that, I want to talk to you. I want to help you build better themes, but use Conductor. It's amazing stuff.
The other quick side note too. I got such a kick in the pants with this when I started the WordPress workshop business, because I built that business knowing that people ask me all the time for WordPress training. So then I wrote all the course material, I built the business, and I was like, okay, we have our first workshop on September 28th. Where is everybody? It was like, oh crap, like, you could have the best product in the world. If people don't know about it, nothing's going to happen. I had to hustle so hard. It was pounding the phones, reaching out to affiliates, other agencies, things like that. So. Yeah.
So during all of this stuff, you now launch a new product called the Six Figure Freelancer. What the heck are you thinking? Take us down that path. Like, what kind of preparation has it taken? What is the product?
Yeah. So what kind of preparation? I'm trying to think of the actual inspiration behind it. It was over the summer, and I was thinking, how do I weave in my unique story and value? I mean, truthfully, although I love teaching WordPress, I got to a point where I said, I'm a little bit beyond showing middle-aged women how to drag widgets onto sidebars. Nothing wrong with that. I still enjoy it and love showing people how to do stuff, but I knew that I could offer a little bit more value. And one of the things that was a little bit frustrating was knowing that people left the WordPress workshops and didn't really apply the stuff. And I could see that because I would build them. I set up test sites, and I would look back, and I saw that they weren't using it. So I wanted to have more of an impact. And I had this idea of how do I weave my story in and just walk people through the exact stuff that they can use. And it was kind of inspired in some ways by like Brent Weaver, who runs yougurus.com, which is a freaking amazing resource. And recognizing that, like, I want to help people who really want to help themselves, because when I started freelancing, I would have paid anything for this guide and this resource, because while there were so many millions of technical resources, there was just no like guide to show me the business side of things. Like, what does a proposal look like? How do I get those first few clients? How do I retain them? How do I build a systematized approach to marketing, inbound marketing, outbound marketing? What does the sales cycle look like? What are like the secrets? So I pieced together all of the material from thousands of dollars of resources, sitting down and mastermind groups and agency owners and all of the, quote unquote secrets that just I could never find anywhere out there. And I really felt it my duty to pass on that information. So someone who's starting or even further along in their freelance career who just wants to know, like, how do I take it to the next level? How do I get that traction and really make a business out of it?
One of the things that, and I'll dive into our confidential mastermind group, but one of the things you mentioned yesterday was you've been waking up earlier to pound out 1,000 words a day.
Yep.
In our Procast, we talk about, and you and I, the Procast that we did in Matt Report Pro, mattreport.com/join, is we talk about mindset, preparation, and things. Specifically talked about working out and being healthier and exercise. So how do you fit in writing 1,000 words along with all the other preparation you're doing?
So yeah, I mean, look, as a freelancer, one of the things I talk about in the book and the course, and that's what it is. It's an in-person course, and then has a 3-month mastermind group, comes the workbook, and I'm actually building the online platform and an app. So at some point I will roll it out online, but I'm testing the material on everybody. But one of the things I talk about that's so essential is guarding your time, because your time is money. And one of the things that I learned in prison very quickly is how focused and present I was. It was almost very refreshing. It sounds like crazy, and the reason for that is because I didn't have technology. I wasn't, I could sit and have a conversation with someone, they're not checking their phone because they don't have one. I'm not, waking up checking my email because I don't have it. So, I wrote a long blog post, you can see it on clintwarren.com, about time management and productivity. And, certainly health, sleep, optimizing nutrition, all of those areas of your life first, because those are what I call force multipliers. They're going to improve every area of your life. But once you have that focus and that passion, it's then really understanding how to maximize your productivity by grouping similar tasks, by taking the first, I take the first 4 or 5 hours of my day, and that's stuff that's really going to move me forward. I'm not checking my email. I'm not, taking sales calls or, sort of like check-in meetings and stuff during that time. I'm producing. And, there's not a lot of wiggle room in my life for what I think are things that really aren't moving me forward. Like, I don't own a TV, and some people hear that and like, oh my God. And it's like, well, that 30 minutes a day that someone spends watching TV, I like to spend that time reading, new material and studying and learning. It's just my preference. I know it sounds intense, but I want to be really good at what I do, and that requires some sacrifices for other things. Yeah,
it's amazing stuff, and it's certainly, I certainly commend you on that. It's tough. Like I've started to draft my book. Like I think I'm at like 6,000 words right now, and I'm just like, oh my God, like I don't know if I can keep doing this.
It's tough. Actually, one book that was recommended to me that really put me on that mindset was Authority by Nathan Barry. And that was recommended to me by Brian, and I realize, everyone has a story and has information, whether you think it or not. You have value that you can add, and it's almost your duty to pass it on. Whether you think it's valuable or not, someone will find it valuable.
Yeah.
So,
How do you, and this will be one of the final questions, what's your outlook for the end of year, for the beginning of the year? How are you structuring yourself? Where do you want to be a year from now when I interview you again?
Where do I want to be a year from now? Well, one of the big things that I would like to do is just share my story and the systems and tools that I've used to really emphasize to anybody beyond freelancers that no matter what obstacles you're facing, you can do anything. If you really set your mind to it, if you visualize it, if you reflect and meditate. I have all this, these systems and tools that I go through a lot of in my blog. Really over the next year, I'd really like to make a push into the personal development space because I think we live at in such a critical juncture in human history. I don't want to sound overly dramatic, but there's so much misinformation out there and confusion and just bad ideas, and everything from nutrition to not understanding, like half the population will have like diabetes in the next 10 years and things like that. And I really think that we need people to just show people there's a better way to live. There's a smart way to be compassionate towards one another, to not live in this environment of negativity and hate. And we need people to lead that and just say, this stuff works, and that regardless of what situation you're in, I speak from experience. 4 or 5 years ago, I was overdosing and being resuscitated, and I wished more than anything that my life would just end because that's how much I hated it. And I'm here now to sort of pass on whatever I can to help encourage people that there's systems and tools and help available, and that you really can do whatever you set your mind to if you just focus on it, visualize it, and make it happen.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff. We're gonna wrap up the interview on that because I don't think it can get any better. Than that message. It's crazy because one of the things that like the gym, and this, started to go to a new gym not even 4 months ago, maybe 4 months ago, not even 4 months ago, 3 months ago. It's like a CrossFit gym, but he's a personal trainer, small groups or whatever. It's just awesome. Like it kicks my ass, and there's just a level of, it's small groups, so it's just the particular group that I work out in every Tuesday and Thursday night. It's just guys, and like we push each other, harder than ever, right? And this is the kind of workout you would never get at a gym like Planet Fitness when there's pizza onto the side and you're left to do your own kind of curls, right? But you can't drop the weights because you'll get kicked out. But the point of that is I am so, now that I experience that this minor thing in my life, the gym, with these small group of guys and this personal trainer, like he doesn't have a website, he doesn't have any, and he's not like the guy that owns it. He's not like thinking business. He just wants to help people. Yeah. And he's not a marketer. Like he doesn't know how to drive more people in. I'm like, man, you need more people here because people need this. People need this kind of workout. So I volunteer my time to help him, build out his web presence and just give him the tips on what he should be doing on YouTube and email, and because I think more people need it. Like you said, it's once you get into this mind state and you're working hard and you're visualizing these goals, I mean, anything can happen. Yeah.
Matt, if I could just throw out one thing too for your listeners, if they want to sign up, I have I'm going to be releasing the Six Figure Freelancer book. It'll be available. I could give you guys a discount code actually as well. So if you just go to Clint, C-L-I-N-T, Warren, WARREN.com/Matt Report, it should be ready in a couple weeks, and it's really just a step-by-step blueprint. I mean, when I talk about email introductions, I have the exact emails and templates and everything that you can download and use to really accelerate your freelance business.
That's clintwarren.com/Matt Report, clintwarren.com/Matt Report. And by the time this episode goes out, that should be available. And we'll hook up all the information on this blog post. If you're listening to this in your car, you can hit up that domain once you're done driving, and then go back to the Matt Report and look at this blog post and get all the pertinent information towards that. Clint, it's been an amazing interview, my friend. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. Very grateful to be here.
It's been an awesome time, everybody. I mean, just loads of information here. It's focusing and building your freelance business and just kicking your own self in the ass to get out of your seat and understand what it takes to really make it. Everybody can go find Clint at clintwarren.com. And do you have a Twitter handle? I'm not too sure.
I do. I'll start using it. It's Clinton, CLINTON _Warren, WARREN.
I like to give him a little flack because I think I have like 30,000 tweets and but look, you see the difference. He's out there hustling, and I'm just sitting behind a computer and get people to buy a product. So there's a difference there. Although I just hit my personal record of the deadlift, 305 pounds.
Awesome, man! Congrats.
I will continue to try to raise that. So everybody else, if you're interested in learning to build a WordPress business a little bit better and get into a community with people that are doing the same things, asking the same questions, we have all those questions answered for you at mattreport.com/join. Become a Matt Report Pro listener, and you get access to a private community, monthly mastermind calls, a forum. It's great. It's $400 for the year. It's no more than your WP Engine hosting account. So go ahead and check that out, mattreport.com/join. Thanks, everybody.